The fluorescent lights of Harrison Tower's lobby cast long shadows across the marble floor as Marcus Webb pushed his mop bucket toward the elevator banks. It was 11:47 p.m., and the gleaming skyscraper stood nearly empty except for security guards and the overnight cleaning crew. Marcus had been doing this job for 3 years now, ever since his wife Sarah passed away from cancer, leaving him to raise their 6-year-old daughter Emma alone. The work was honest, the hours allowed him to be home when Emma got off the school bus, and most importantly, it kept food on their table and a roof over their heads. Tonight felt different somehow. As Marcus squeezed excess water from his mop, he noticed the main entrance doors were slightly ajar, unusual for this time of night. Cold November wind whistled through the gap, carrying dried leaves across the polished floor he'd just cleaned. He sighed, setting down his mop to investigate. That's when he heard it, a soft whimpering sound, barely audible over the building's heating system. Marcus stepped outside onto the concrete plaza, his breath forming small clouds in the frigid air. There, huddled between 2 large planters that flanked the entrance, was a little girl. She couldn't have been more than 7 or 8 years old, wearing what had once been an expensive-looking pink dress, now torn and dirty. Her blonde hair was tangled, her face streaked with tears and grime. She was shivering violently, her thin arms wrapped around her knees. "Hey there, sweetheart," Marcus said softly, crouching down to her level the way he always did with Emma. "Are you okay? Where are your parents?" The girl looked up at him with wide, terrified eyes but didn't speak. Marcus could see she was in shock, probably had been out here for hours. Without hesitation, he shrugged off his work jacket and draped it around her small shoulders. "My name's Marcus. I'm not going to hurt you, I promise. Let's get you inside where it's warm, okay?" The girl nodded slightly, and Marcus gently helped her to her feet. Her legs were wobbly, and he ended up carrying her into the lobby, where he wrapped her in an emergency blanket from the security desk. He called the police immediately, then sat with her, offering her water and a granola bar from his lunchbox. Slowly, she began to respond. "What's your name, honey?" Marcus asked gently. "Lily," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "That's a beautiful name. Lily, can you tell me what happened? How did you get here?" Tears welled up in her eyes again. "Bad men, they took me from my house. I was playing in the backyard and they put me in a van. But when they stopped at a red light near here, I ran. I just ran and ran until I couldn't run anymore." Marcus felt his heart clench. This child had been kidnapped and had somehow managed to escape. He held her hand gently. "You're so brave, Lily. So incredibly brave. You're safe now, I promise." The police arrived within 15 minutes, followed shortly by FBI agents. Marcus learned that Lily wasn't just any little girl, she was Lily Harrington, daughter of James Harrington, the CEO of Harrington Industries, whose corporate headquarters occupied the top 15 floors of this very building. She'd been missing for 3 days, and there was a massive search underway. The ransom demand had been for $10 million. The lobby erupted into organized chaos. More police arrived, then news vans. And then James Harrington himself burst through the doors, still in his pajamas with a coat thrown over them, his face a mixture of hope and terror. When he saw Lily, he ran to her, dropping to his knees and pulling her into his arms, sobbing openly. "Daddy!" Lily cried, clinging to him like she'd never let go. Marcus quietly stepped back, gathering his cleaning supplies. His job here was done, and these people needed privacy for their reunion. He was almost to the elevator when he heard a voice behind him. "Wait. Please wait." Marcus turned to see James Harrington walking toward him, still holding Lily in his arms. The CEO's eyes were red from crying, but there was an intensity in his gaze that Marcus had never seen directed at him before. "You saved my daughter," James said, his voice breaking. "You saved my little girl." Marcus shook his head. "I just did what anyone would do, sir." I'm glad she's okay. No, James said firmly. Not anyone. The police told me you gave her your jacket, stayed with her, kept her calm. They said you handled everything perfectly. He paused, struggling with emotion. I've spent the last 3 days in hell, not knowing if I'd ever see her again. You gave her back to me. How can I ever repay that? There's nothing to repay, Mr. Harrington. I have a daughter too. If it were Emma out there, I'd hope someone would do the same. Over the next few days, the story made national news. Marcus found himself unexpectedly in the spotlight, though he tried to avoid it as much as possible. What he didn't avoid was the phone call from James Harrington's assistant, requesting a meeting. When Marcus arrived at the executive suite on the 42nd floor, a place he'd only ever cleaned, never visited, he felt completely out of place in his thrift store suit. James Harrington met him personally, looking more rested than he had that night but still carrying the weight of what had happened. Marcus, thank you for coming. Please, sit down. What happened next left Marcus speechless. James explained that he'd been doing a lot of thinking. He'd built an empire, acquired wealth beyond measure, but when Lily was taken, none of it mattered. What mattered was the kindness of a stranger, a night janitor who saw a child in need and didn't hesitate to help. I want to offer you a position in my company, James said. Director of Community Outreach and Corporate Responsibility. It's a newly created position with a 6-figure salary, full benefits, and a college fund for Emma. But more than that, I want you to help me figure out how to make this company more human, more connected to the community we serve. Marcus was stunned. Mr. Harrington, I don't have a college degree. I'm a janitor. You're a good man, James corrected. You have integrity, compassion, and common sense, qualities that can't be taught in any university. I've spent my career surrounded by people with impressive credentials who've lost touch with what really matters. You haven't. I need that perspective. This company needs it. Marcus thought about Emma, about the struggles to make ends meet, about the opportunities this could provide. But more than that, he thought about the chance to make a real difference, to help create programs that could support other single parents, other struggling families. On one condition, Marcus said finally. The janitorial staff gets better wages and benefits too. They work just as hard as anyone else in this building. James Harrington smiled, a real, genuine smile, and extended his hand. Deal. 3 months later, Marcus stood in that same lobby, now wearing a suit that actually fit, watching as the company launched its first community initiative, a scholarship program for children of single parents. Lily was there with her father, and when she saw Marcus, she ran to him and hugged his waist. Thank you for saving me, she whispered. Marcus knelt down, just like he had that cold November night. Thank you for reminding me that kindness always matters, no matter who's watching. That evening, as Marcus picked up Emma from school and told her about his day, he realized that sometimes the smallest acts of humanity can change everything, not just for one person, but for everyone their lives touch. He'd found a little girl in the darkness, and in doing so, he'd found hope, purpose, and proof that goodness still existed in the world. And every night, before bed, Emma would ask him to tell her the story one more time, the story about how her daddy became a hero just by being himself.